All right, good afternoon. Today we're announcing the addition of Rafael Caro Quintero to the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list. He's considered one of the Mexican godfathers of drug trafficking. He helped to form the Guadalajara cartel in the late 1970s, and he became one of the primary suppliers of heroin, cocaine, and marijuana to the United States. He was also in charge of the cartel in Costa Rica and along the U.S.-Mexico border. In 1984, Mexican authorities raided Caro Quintero's 2,500-acre marijuana plantation. Following the raids, the Guadalajara cartel blamed DEA Special Agent Enrique Camarena Salazar and decided to retaliate. Based on Caro Quintero's order, Agent Camarena was kidnapped, brutally murdered, tortured before his murder, and killed. Caro Quintero was arrested for his role in the murder, found guilty, and imprisoned in Mexico, where he remained until 2013. Unfortunately, he was released on a technicality and quickly returned to the drug trade. Today, he's a top leader in the Sinaloa cartel, considered the largest drug trafficking organization in Mexico, responsible for smuggling hundreds of tons of methamphetamine, marijuana, and cocaine into the United States. Caro Quintero remains in hiding, and we need the public's help in finding this violent fugitive who is currently a menace to society. We're using all the tools at our disposal to track him down, and one of those most valuable tools is the 10 most wanted list. This kind of worldwide publicity is crucial to catching dangerous criminals like Caro Quintero and bringing them to justice. Since 1950, we've had 518 fugitives which have been placed on the top 10 list. Of those, 484 have been captured or located, which is just south of 95% success rate. Today, we're joining together with our partners from the DEA, the U.S. Marshals Service, and the U.S. Department of State. We are pooling our resources and our capabilities to find Caro Quintero and to bring to justice this dangerous criminal and cartel leader responsible for the brutal murder of a DEA agent. Agent Camarena was devoted to breaking the cycle of drug-related crime and violence that strangles communities throughout this country, both here in the U.S. and south of the border. He also showed tremendous courage that drove him to pursue the most violent drug traffickers, even though it put him in grave danger. It's because of that courage and that selflessness that we're not going to stop looking for Caro Quintero, not ever, until we find him and put him back behind bars where he belongs. We're grateful to the media and to the public who have helped us catch fugitives over the years who've been added to the top 10 fugitive list. It is our sincere hope that someone comes forward with new information so we can catch Caro Quintero and ensure justice for Agent Camarena and his family. We have photographs of Caro Quintero as both a younger man and what he looks like today. These images are posted on most wanted posters throughout the country. Please take the time to review them, as well as the detailed descriptive information of Caro Quintero on the FBI's website. That website is www.fbi.gov. Remember that Caro Quintero is considered armed and extremely dangerous, so please do not take any independent action. We are asking the public not to do that. If you know anything about him or his location, please call 1-800-CALL-FBI or contact the nearest American embassy or consulate. Thank you. Next up, I'd like to introduce Acting Administrator Robert Patterson.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you to the media that is here today. I want to start by saying that obviously the seriousness of this is critical. It has been always for DEA employees, but not just DEA, for all of the Department of Justice. And I want to say thank you to the FBI and the U.S. Marshals here today, as well as our friends from the Department of State and their upcoming announcement as well. I view today's announcement as another example of all DOJ components, not just the law enforcement components, but the federal prosecutors, under the strong leadership of Attorney General Sessions, working together to ensure that individuals are held accountable for their crimes. Many outside of DEA already know the history of Special Agent Camarena, an individual who in his role as a special agent was, as Dave Bowditch just said, targeted, kidnapped, tortured, and murdered because of his role and what he had done. What S.A. Camarena means to DEA will never be diminished or forgotten. But what also needs to be remembered is Enrique Camarena was a son, a brother, most importantly, a spouse and a father. A recently released interview with Quintero, where he's conveniently rewriting history, portrays him as an old man who simply wants to be left alone for his final days. An individual who was involved in marijuana in the 1980s. And he added the continued attempt to arrest and apprehend him is simply driven by misplaced vengeance. That's his quote. What he claims is vengeance is actually both the governments of Mexico and United States jointly attempting to hold an individual accountable. Besides the torture and murder of Special Agent Camarena in 1985, Quintero has continued his criminal enterprise moving narcotics into the United States. Equally as important, he has no issue of carrying out acts of violence on his own fellow countrymen to maintain his ability to continue this enterprise. That is why we have come together today to make these announcements and are broadcasting this to a number of states, not just on our border, but also in Mexico. He's not just an old man trying to live out his final days. He's an individual that continues to run a criminal organization. I'm happy to announce that the Eastern District of New York has just unsealed an indictment and is simultaneously issuing a press release, which we will have for you later. This activity shows his role in these organizations up through 2017. So as he attempts to revise history, we want you to all know that law enforcement has always known the truth, as does he. I am proud of our working relationships with prosecution, law enforcement, and military partners in Mexico. I have no doubt that that government, in conjunction with our efforts, will bring Quintero back into custody. With that, I would like to introduce James Walsh with the Department of State.
Thank you, Acting Administrator Patterson. I'm honored to be here today to represent the State Department, where I'm currently leading the Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs, or INL. I know the effort to bring Rafael Caro Quintero to justice is a high priority for the DEA, as indeed it is for all of us. The State Department is pleased to be a part of this effort. Deputy Director Bowditch, Associate Director Driscoll, it's an honor to be alongside both of you as well. That all four of our agencies are represented here today is more than just symbolic. It underscores how closely we work together to bring the unique tools and authorities of our agencies to bear against the transnational criminals and the transnational criminal organizations that threaten American interest and our people. There's a particular State Department tool that we are applying here today, and that is the Narcotics Rewards Program. Through this program, I'm pleased to announce we are offering $20 million reward, or 360 million pesos, for the information leading to the arrest or conviction of Caro Quintero. This $20 million reward is among the highest the Narcotics Rewards Programs offers, and the largest reward of the current 33 active targets. I ask for your help in highlighting this reward offer, as it could play a pivotal role in bringing Caro Quintero to justice. Since the inception of the program, the Department of State has paid out more than $108 million in rewards, helping to bring more than 67 criminals to justice. The Narcotics Rewards Program is one tool among many that the State Department is using to address the drug threat is affecting so many Americans. Around the world, the State Department is building international cooperation and helping partners to develop capable institutions to combat drug trafficking and other transnational criminal threats. My counterparts have already told you of Caro Quintero's role as the mastermind and organizer of truly atrocious acts. I'd just like to close my remarks by recognizing the ultimate sacrifice paid by so many, especially Special Agent Camarena. It's my sincerest hope that our Narcotics Reward Program offer can help move us toward the goal of bringing Rafael Quintero to justice. Thank you for being here today. I'm going to turn it over to Acting Director Driscoll.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for covering such a noteworthy event. It's an honor to be here today alongside my fellow leaders and partners with the FBI, DEA, and of course the Department of State. My hope is with all of us up here, you can all see and feel the whole of government effort, and actually I would say relentless effort, across two fronts. The first is our strength and determination to enforce the rule of law by locating and apprehending Caro Quintero. And of course, the other is our steadfast pursuit of justice for our brother, DEA Special Agent Kiki Camarena. To that end, we'll persistently continue to leverage all resources and work with our law enforcement partners both here and in Mexico to develop information that will lead to the capture of Caro Quintero. We routinely provide support to the government of Mexico, our partners, to ensure the capture of dangerous and violent international fugitives. So collaboratively, across our components, I know we have the critical relationships in place to be successful. We are confident the addition of Caro Quintero to the FBI's most wanted list, along with the increased award amount from the State Department, will produce the vital leads that finally bring this international fugitive investigation to a close, Caro Quintero to justice. Thank you.
At this time, we'll open it up for questions. As I said before, if you could please help us out by identifying your name, media outlet, and to whom your question is directed towards.
Yes, my name is Jose Diaz with the Reforma newspaper from Mexico. This is a question for the acting administrator. To the extent possible, can you describe Caro Quintero's activities since he was released from prison in 2013 to understand how he was a mastermind in the criminal enterprise? And second, what's the role of the Mexican government? How come they are not here, considering the strong partnership we have?
Certainly, and I'll take the second part of that question first. We have an incredibly strong partnership at the working level with both the prosecutor's office, the police, and the military. And that relationship has continued to be strong as they pursue and continue these efforts. Going back to the first part, like I said, Eastern District has released or unsealed and now released information related to the ongoing activities of Caro Quintero. I'd defer any of those questions because they're active prosecutions to either the Eastern District of New York or the Central District of California.
But you're convinced he's still the leader of the Sinaloa cartel?
As I said, we know he is, and he also knows he is.
Right here.
Jesus Esquivel from Proceso Magazine of Mexico for you, Mr. Patterson. Actually, it's a follow-up. You mentioned he's a top member of the Sinaloa cartel. Where do you put Caro Quintero besides Mayo Zambada, who is the leader of the Sinaloa cartel? El Chapo is already arrested, and there are several members of the Sinaloa cartel. They are in the top of Rafael Caro Quintero. What number is him on the inside of Sinaloa cartel?
So when I was down in Mexico, I had the same similar question as to the hierarchy of any of these organizations, and I'll simply leave it at this. These organizations, although having leadership roles in them, don't matter to us, right? The organization as a whole is what has the impact. To place one in front of the other, I think probably doesn't help the effort. It is a host of folks that continue to cause and plague us with the problems that we have in the United States, and we target them all in a similar fashion. But to assign a ranking to that, I don't think has much significance.
But you mentioned he's one of the top leaders, so what's the purpose to mention him a top leader if anyone of the Sinaloa cartel is in the same level?
I think it's a fair statement to say he still remains one of the top leaders of the cartels down in Mexico.
David Churchill, CNN for Deputy Director Badage. What's American law enforcement's most recent interaction with Caro Quintero, and is it believed that he's still in Mexico, or do we know where he is now?
We believe he's still in Mexico. The most recent interaction with him, I do not know. As I mentioned earlier, in 2013, he was released based on a court ruling down in Mexico.
Right here.
I'm Maria Molina for W Radio Colombia. 2 days ago, our country was shocked because an ex-FARC leader, Jesus Santrich, was captured. And basically, the reason why he was captured is because he was supposed to be having or trying to have business with Rafael Caro Quintero. He even sent a picture to Rafa expressing his admiration. So now I wonder if there is any relationship between the two announcements from the DEA in this week, and if you hope that maybe now that Mr. Santrich is captured, maybe he can lead you to Rafael Caro Quintero.
Can I jump in right here? Any questions that you have related to the FARC arrest that you just mentioned need to be directed to the embassy. We can address your other questions here, though.
Okay.
I think, look, the safest way to discuss this is to understand that all of these organizations have interrelations that are important for them to not only stay in business, but to maintain their power. How one relates to the other, I mean, you've seen these reports in other organizations where they talk about their admiration of other leaders, and that's why I go back to the point of it really doesn't matter where they are. There is a host of people at the top echelons of these groups that all need and use each other to conduct their business. How they string together, we're aware that they all know each other and they communicate and all of these other pieces, because that's how they stay in business.
Hi, my name is Christina from Voice of America. My question is for the Deputy Director. You mentioned that Mexico government made a mistake, or it was a technical problem when they released him at 2013. Can you explain what was that mistake, and if they accepted that they're going to help you? They're going to help you find him in Mexico?
Well, we have had a number of successes with the Mexican government working on drug traffickers along the past couple decades, at least. I'm not going to get into the court ruling, how it was made and by whom. I think that should be deferred to, or referred rather, to the Mexicans. What I will say is the reason for this announcement is to, again, discuss our relentless pursuit. And I think it's very important to understand why this case is so significant, why we are putting up so much. The Department of State is offering such a large and significant reward. Number one, Mr. Camarena was abducted off the street. Number two, he was brutally tortured. Number three, he was murdered. Number four, Mr. Caro Quintero is known as a senior leader in the Sinaloa cartel. And number five, because of his activities and the activities of many of his associates, you have hundreds of tons of various amounts of various narcotics, to include marijuana, cocaine, and methamphetamine, that have made it into the streets of the U.S. That is a very significant reason that we are here today.
Back here in the back there.
Becky Perla from ABC News, for whoever wants to answer it. The Huffington Post came out with an article about 2 weeks ago, about 10 days ago, that says Caro Quintero would turn himself in if he was really guilty, if the DEA and the FBI can prove it as such. What's your response to that?
Okay, you want me to? That's pretty easy. I'd love to answer that one.
I think Dave would probably add the same answer, which we would be more than happy if he wants to turn himself into the authorities, and we can work through all these issues in a court of law.
I'll be happy to.
Right here.
Yes, Ruben Barrero with the Mexican News Agency, Notimex. And this is a question for the Deputy Director. You mentioned in your introductory remark, or you allude, the family of Mr. Caro Quintero. What exactly do you mean? Does that mean that U.S. authorities are going to target also members of the family of Mr. Caro Quintero?
Sir, I'm not fully understanding your question.
Well, you mentioned the family. You say that you will be going after Mr. Caro Quintero.
No, sir, I did not. I was talking about the family of Mr. Camarena, and we want to make sure that they receive justice for the loss of their father, their husband, their grandfather. That's what I was referring to.
Nick Miro from the Washington Post has a question for Deputy Director Walsh. Was anyone from the Mexican government invited today?
This is a United States program, the State Department rewards program, and certainly we work closely with the government of Mexico. But for this announcement, this is a U.S. announcement.
We haven't worked with individuals at the ambassador that will be releasing similar information following this press conference.
Yeah. Andy Trier with CBS. There was a big push in 2013 to find Caro Quintero. The fact that you're having this press conference, has the trail gone cold, Mr. Babbage? And have you had any recent ascent of this trail?
I think it's, first of all, I'm not going to talk about where we are in the investigation of him, because there are a number of efforts underway to find him. What I will say is we have found over the years, we have well over 500 members of the FBI's top 10 most wanted list, roughly a 95% rate of solution. And so we believe that that is an opportunity, this is an opportunity to bring more publicity, more focus, and more attention to it. Out of the 500-plus fugitives that we have solutioned as a result of being on the list, 162 of those, 162 were found because of citizen recognition based on the attention that is provided to them as a result of them making the top 10 most wanted list.
Because your cases sort of come to, it's not come to fruition?
Again, it's not, obviously, we're not at fruition. We don't have them behind bars yet, but it's simply to bring more attention to it. We need the public's assistance. What happened was terrible, and we need the public's assistance to find Mr. Caro Quintero.
More questions right here.
Alan Abel from Maclean's Magazine of Canada. For any or all of you, given the current state of relations between the United States and Mexico, if you say that Mr. Caro Quintero you believe is in Mexico, why would any Mexican come forward to help the United States capture a most wanted criminal?
I think it's probably critically important to note, and we just left IDEC over in the Netherlands yesterday to come back for this event, where 125 nations are gathered to essentially talk about transnational criminal organizations. This transcends politics, right? These are men and women that work day in and day out to target and bring these groups to justice. Our working relationships, like I said in my statement, with both the prosecutors level, with the military, and with law enforcement counterparts down there, have continued in a robust fashion through all of the other political issues that may be out there. So I don't think that one impacts the other. I think it's a valid question, but I think that we are aggressively working with very competent and good partners down in Mexico.
You say that many of the most wanted since 1950 have been captured through the aid of ordinary citizens. You expect an ordinary Mexican citizen who sees this man on the street to come forward?
I'll give you my opinion, which is he has to have people logistically moving him all day long. He states that in the Huffington Post article, as you just said. At some point, those people will turn on him as well. So part of this is that.
Here in the
Can I jump in on that one and just finish
Yes,
that?
please do.
Put a cherry on top of that. So, first of all, the borders don't necessarily mean that you don't have, in fact, they don't mean that you don't have good citizens on both sides of those borders, most of which have zero tolerance for the murder and mayhem that is derived from some of the cartel violence. Certainly some do, because there's a lot of fear. But the fact is, we're not going to expose a citizen, a good Samaritan, or quite frankly, somebody who needs the money. We would never expose them if they did provide a lead that led to the capture and ultimately the conviction of Mr. Caro Quintero. This is how we arrest a lot of people. Most people don't want their names highlighted when they do something like this, but they do provide valuable intelligence so that it leads to an arrest.
Let's let other people jump in. Go ahead.
Armando Guzman from Azteca Television in Mexico. Mr. Bowling, if you could please, the significance of putting Caro Quintero on the 10 most wanted list is that you can increase the resources, right? Should we understand that you have increased the resources, those resources inside Mexico, at the FBI and the DEA and the other agencies represented here, to look for Caro Quintero, or are you depending on the Mexican police and the Mexican army and the authorities in Mexico?
I think it's a fair question, and the answer is we are here because we do not have him in custody. We do need additional valuable intelligence and tips and leads to come in from the public. When and if that happens, we will apply all the resources necessary to ensure that we, the FBI, in combination with our partners here, as well as the Mexican officials, that we are able to bring him to justice.
But so far you haven't increased the number of agents, for instance, or assets inside Mexico for this purpose.
We have a number of assets working hand in hand with our Mexican partners. We also have a number of assets and agents and analysts that work throughout the southwest border and throughout the country in conjunction with our other partners, most prevalent DEA, on some of the cartel yield, which includes border corruption, which includes drugs going from the cartels to the gangs on the streets. So in this particular, no, it would be not necessarily something we would do to increase the resources right before an announcement, but if we get leads that come out of this, and I'm sure we will immediately increase the resources as much as necessary. This is something we take very seriously, or we would not have called this.
Right here. This is Allie Watkins with the New York Times, and whoever feels better positioned to answer this. Since the 1980s, the Justice Department has explored or made clear to the Mexican government that they would like to look into extraditing Caro Quintero. And given the new interest that you hope is going to come from this, has that conversation continued? Obviously, you made this interest clear, and he was still released from Mexican prison. So, what's the status of that conversation?
With regard to extradition, we just really can't comment on any plans or discussions we have with the government of Mexico on extraditions. That's something we just don't discuss.
Is the Mexican government aware of that? In the interest of the United States?
We're interested in bringing this guy to justice, and we're going to use every tools available to bring him to justice.
Just quickly, have you guys reached the Mexican reporter Anabel Hernandez, who has recently interviewed Caro Quintero and put the video on the website? She did the interview twice. Lately, in January, she was in the jungle interviewing him.
It's an understandable question, but we would never discuss who we talk to in the pursuit of a fugitive investigation. It just wouldn't happen.
Thank you guys all for coming. If you do have some other questions, the public affairs staff will be around and can kind of point you in the right direction. Just want to thank all of our federal partners that working together brought this together today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
I think I mentioned in LA once, real quick, but I was with Laura.